for joining me for the OptSus WP chat. Today we're going to discuss how to back up your WordPress sites. Right off the gate, imagine losing all your website data overnight. It's scary, but updates can go wrong. Hacking is a possibility. Missed payments with your hosting provider can result in your website being removed. Random crashes can cause your site to disappear. These are all reasons that backups are very important. Today I'm going to show you how to back up your website quickly. That way you can get this done in 5 minutes or less. And you don't have to worry about losing the hard work on your website. So, related to the importance of backups, updates can cause issues. Hacking is an unfortunate possibility. Missed payments, those can lead to your website being removed. This can simply be a credit or debit card being changed, the expiration date being updated, and random errors and crashes, those can happen. You want to make sure that you have your website backed up. For WordPress, this starts with choosing a common or reliable plugin such as UpdraftPlus, BackWPup, VaultPress, or Duplicator. These are all very common WordPress plugins used for backups. You also want to look at the ratings and reviews as you're going through the plugin library for WordPress. If you don't want to use one of these that I've mentioned, you can take a look at the plugin library and review the ratings that you find in there to find one that has a high number of positive reviews. You want to ensure that whatever plugin you're using, regardless of whether it's a backup plugin or any other plugin on your WordPress site, it needs to be updated regularly and have active support. You want to check for compatibility with your WordPress version, and you want to consider other features that are specific to backup plugins, such as cloud storage options and easy restoration processes. With all of these backup plugins, there are some basic steps that remain the same throughout all of them. You're going to install and activate the plugin. You're going to go through an initial setup process. You're going to configure scheduling for recurring backups, and you're going to connect it with some sort of cloud storage solution so that way the backups can be placed somewhere off of the server. This is probably one of the most common mistakes that people make. I have seen it so many times where people install a backup plugin, they go through the configuration and they skip the cloud storage option, and the plugin will run, but it's going to be storing those backups on your hosting server. And if your hosting server is hacked or the files there are corrupted or deleted for any reason, your backups are gone with it. So you want to make sure that you're moving those backups somewhere other than the hosting server where your website is located. Once you have your backup set up and configured, you've got your plugin in place, you need to make sure that you can restore from a backup. To do this, you're going to access your backup plugin, you're going to select your desired backup files, and you're going to follow the restoration process. Usually you're going to do this in another place, such as a staging server or a local copy on your computer, so you can make sure that the files that you've just backed up actually do contain your website. As a model for you to work towards, I want to outline how we're doing it with the OptSus Backup System. Previously, we most frequently did use the UpdraftPlus plugin. It does a lot of the things that we're looking for, but ultimately we ended up changing that because we wanted to have a little bit more customization with the system that we're using for our own websites and those that we manage for clients. So OptSus now has our own backup system. This includes having local backups that are on the hosting server. The reason that we do this is those are able to be accessed very quickly because they're on the same server. We also have cloud backups for offsite security. So even if we lose access to the hosting server, we have a copy of those websites out in the cloud. In addition to the cloud backup, we have another backup that we keep locally on our own server. And in addition to all of these things, we back up our servers on a regular basis. At this point, if we were to lose the local backups on the hosting server, the cloud backups that are offsite, and the local backups that OptSus has control over directly, the world would have a lot more problems going on than our website backup. This would require multiple large companies scattered across the United States to have lost access to their file servers. That's the type of catastrophic event that our websites are backed up in multiple redundancies to make sure that we never lose access to those files. Now, as we're wrapping up the topic of website backups, I want to call your attention to where you can share topic ideas. If you want to see something covered here on the WP chat, please visit optsus.com/WP chat. On that page, you'll find a form that you can fill out to give ideas for what you would like to see covered here on these videos. Some last tips and best practices for backups that I want to run through. Now that you've got your backups, here's how you can make it a little bit better. You want to learn the manual installation of WordPress. This will give you some understanding of the core parts of WordPress. You can reference the WordPress developer resources for the manual installation. I've got the link here that I'll share. You can also do a quick search to find that if you don't have this link available, depending on where you're watching this video. There's also confidence in knowing manual deployment. So even if the backup plugin isn't working, if you have access to the files and you have a knowledge of manual deployment, you can put your WordPress website back together. I've only had to do this a handful of times over the decades that I've been working with WordPress websites, but it has been an invaluable skill to be able to know which pieces I need and how to assemble those parts to be able to create a WordPress website manually if necessary. Another tip for you is to make sure that you are using standard file formats. I've been doing this, building websites for over 25 years now, and over those decades of work, I have seen various proprietary file formats come and go. And if you're using a format that a company has developed in order to provide some level of increased performance, perhaps these file formats take up less space, they might transfer more quickly, any of a variety of reasons. They're all good reasons for them to create those proprietary formats, but you need to be thinking about what if you need access to that file and the company that created the proprietary format is no longer in business. For this reason, I prefer to use standard formats like zip files in order to ensure long-term accessibility of these backups. Next, a common saying in the world of backups is 2 is 1 and 1 is none. Essentially, getting to the point that you want to have multiple backup copies and you want to have those stored in multiple locations. As I mentioned, the OptSus Backup System would require multiple servers across the United States to go offline simultaneously for us to be able to lose any data. If that happens, that data that we lost is probably going to be low on our priority list. We're going to be concerned about other more important things. Consider when you're backing up your files. I mentioned the most common mistake that people don't configure the cloud backup. They end up having the backup on the same server where they're hosting the website. Simply adding a cloud backup moves that file off of the server so that way you have multiple locations. You at least have 2 different locations there. And you can think about how you might move it to a third location. You want to make sure that you have several locations and several copies of your files. Next tip for you for backups is testing your backups. You want to periodically use your backup files and try to restore the website over on a staging server. The reason for this is that just because the backup plugin ran and it shows the little checkbox that all the files were created does not necessarily mean that those files were not corrupted. It's been a little while since I've seen this tactic, but I'm sure that it still exists out there with various virus programs. One of the exploits that they would do is that they would corrupt the backups in order to make it look like the backup was created, but after that process was completed, the file was corrupted, and this was particularly used for some ransomware kind of attacks. You want to make sure that just because the file was created, you actually know that you can also use that file to restore the backup. So make sure that you are testing your backups. You also want to really consider your backup frequency. Storage space is relatively inexpensive these days, so by default we back up all of our websites at least once per day, and we save many months of backups in storage just in case we have to access them. You're going to want to consider how frequently you want to back up your website and how often you're going to clean up those backups in order to save some storage space. However, if you're running an e-commerce website, you may want to increase this significantly, possibly going into every hour or some period of minutes. You can also have some continuous backups if you have a very, very large volume of data that you're working with. The reason for this is that if you're running e-commerce, such as using WooCommerce through your WordPress website, every transaction is stored in the database for that website. So at that point, you may want to consider how often you want to back up the database versus how often you want to back up the files for your website. The files tend to take up more space and they typically take longer to back up. The database is a lot quicker to back up. So with e-commerce websites, it's not uncommon to push into pulling multiple backups per day for the database while only backing up the files once per day. You're going to want to consider the frequency of the updates to the files and the database for your website to determine the best frequency. You also have a manual backup option. This is for advanced users. If you have lost access to the user interface for the website, you may actually need to log into the server directly and use SFTP as well as phpMyAdmin to be able to back up the files and the database manually. As I mentioned before, I recommend learning how to build a WordPress website manually, how to install the website onto the server. If you learn how to do that, it makes it a lot easier to do these advanced backups, just in case you do lose access to the graphical user interface for a website. You can go back to the command prompt and be able to pull these files out and these databases manually to be able to pull a copy of a website if necessary. And as we're wrapping up here, another reminder, please share your topic ideas at optsus.com/WPchat. Like and subscribe to us here on YouTube so that way you can keep up with the latest updates related to WordPress. Have a wonderful day.